overnight.
I believe in reason and common sense.
Leith Van Onselen from Macro Business with the Treasury of Common Sense.
Common sense never goes out of style.
Yes, at this time of the morning, common sense is a welcome relief. Well, Leith Van Onselen is on the line, and this morning we're talking about migration. Now, the Coalition, they're set to make immigration a battleground and a key difference in the lead up to the next federal election. The Coalition's immigration spokesperson, Dan Tehan, he's told the ABC that Labor's what he calls stealth Big Australia policy is driving the housing crisis, and suggested that the Coalition is going to take lower immigration policy to next year's election. We spoke about this the other day, and I think we worked out that it's about 1,800 new people coming into Australia every single day. Now, when you're sitting in traffic on the way to work, it's not hard to realise why. Likewise, when you're going to a rental inspection or an auction, the proof's in the pudding. Leith Van Onselen, good morning.
Yeah, g'day, Ned. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us. So I suppose my first question is, do you think that Labor has got a policy of allowing too many people into Australia?
Oh, 100%. Look, this has been deliberate. We've obviously seen last week's migration data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and that was, numbers we have never seen before in the nation's history. So just to give a quick recap, in the year to March 2023, Australia recorded net overseas migration of 454,300 and population growth of 563,200. Now, that is basically way higher than what was forecast in the May federal budget. So the May federal budget tipped that we'd have net overseas migration of 400,000 for the 2023 financial year, so the year to June, and population growth of 524,000. Now, those forecasts in themselves were the biggest population growth in immigration that Australia would ever see. And in the year to March, we've already smashed that. We've smashed it. We've exceeded the net overseas migration by over 50,000. So it's actually running hotter than what was predicted just in the May federal budget. And to make matters worse, the recent national accounts that came out even the week before, they provide population projections in there. They're not obviously final figures; they're provisional. But according to those figures, Australia's population grew by 626,000 in the 2023 financial year. Now that's 100,000 more than what was predicted in the May federal budget. So these are just absolutely extraordinary numbers, and the sorts of numbers we've never seen before. And what makes it even more worrying, Ned, is that once again, the immigration is flowing to basically Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah. So according to the ABS, New South Wales in the year to March received 153,400 net overseas migrants, and Victoria received 137,600. So between those two states alone, and we know they're basically coming to Sydney and Melbourne. They're not, that's basically it's the 90% of it. Those two states alone accounted for 64% of the nation's net overseas migration, record net overseas migration. So, is there any wonder we've got a housing crisis in Sydney and Melbourne and other places?
100%.
When we've got such strong population growth.
Leith, my question for you is, why are Labor doing this? Why is the federal government running this policy?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. It's probably one you probably better ask one of them. It's absolutely bonkers. It makes no sense. It is deliberate though, because basically, they made up this fake narrative of a 1 million visa backlog when they became elected, and then they promised to basically get that down. And Andrew Giles, the immigration minister, keeps spruiking that they've halved the immigration backlog. They've rubber stamped, millions of visas since they come to office. They've basically extended work rights for international students. They've provided all these other perks to basically get immigration up, and they've got the result they wanted. Now, as to why they're doing it, it's a good question. It certainly is giving the economy sort of fake growth. Like, we are in a per capita recession, but when you grow the population by about 2.5%, it's very hard to have a recession. And so it does make the economy look better than it is. It obviously keeps their donors happy, so it keeps big business happy, it keeps the property lobby happy, keeps the universities happy. They're all the ones who are pushing for this.
Keeps everyone happy except for those actually voting, the citizens.
Yes, that's right. And unfortunately, we've never been given a say. So, the Albanese government, before they were government, they went to last election and they didn't mention they were going to do this. And then as soon as they were basically elected, they, ran the phony Jobs and Skills Summit. they stacked it full of people who basically wanted big migration. They struck a fake consensus for big migration, and then they've basically used that to ram home the biggest numbers we've ever seen. And this is obviously creating the rental crisis everyone sees. It's obviously creating infrastructure bottlenecks, and it's going to wreck the environment as well. And good luck with this whole net zero, malarkey that they want to do. The federal government's committed to basically achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Well, how are you going to do that when you're growing the population like a science experiment? And what are we going to do the next time there's a drought? I mean, 4 years ago, you remember this, Ned. 4 years ago, Sydney was running very low on water. You're down about 20% in your catchments.
Yep.
The last drought, and then we got a La Nina, so we had heaps of rain for 3 years. But we're now going into another drought period, apparently. According to the Bureau of Meteorology, they declared another El Nino 2 days ago. What are we going to do next time another drought comes around, yet we've got literally millions more people to provide food to and to provide water to? None of this adds up. We're basically growing the population way too fast, and it's way beyond what the environment's carry capacity is, what our capacity is to build houses, infrastructure, all these other things, and we're seeing it in our living standards.
Yep. Okay. Well, last question. Dan Tehan foreshadows a bit of a battle on this at the election. What are you hearing from the opposition?
Yeah, so basically Dan Tehan went on Radio National Breakfast a couple of days ago on the ABC, and he basically said that this is big Australia by stealth. It's causing all these problems, all these massive negative externalities. He didn't give a number, but he said that, look, we're currently working the process, and we're going to take a immigration policy, and you can say a smaller immigration policy, to the next election, and that's a really good thing, because immigration is never, outside of boat arrivals, which has always been a bit of a furphy. The issue of immigration numbers has never been taken to an election before. We've never actually been given a chance to vote on it. We've always had this sort of silent duopoly, Labor, the Greens, gentleman's agreement not to talk about it. And for the first time in our history, this might actually be an election issue. And that's good, because we've never been given a say.
Leith, I think a battle over this at the election is a good thing. I think in the contest of ideas, the best idea always wins. So you're predicting that come the next election, this will be front and centre?
I hope so. Look, we can only go on what Dan Tehan said in his most recent comments. He's obviously not the leader, so he's got to take this through shadow cabinet and all that sort of stuff. But the signs are certainly good, because there has been some more rumblings, not just from him, but from a few others in the party who are starting to question this. And we know that Peter Dutton was, he wasn't the most amenable to high immigration when he was, when he was in the job as minister. So I think there will be some pushback. And the fact of the matter is, if the coalition wants any hope of winning, they need to run on this issue, because this is incredibly unpopular. Just about every opinion poll that has come out on this issue has said that about 2/3 of Australians don't want high immigration. They want much lower immigration than we had pre-COVID, let alone the insane levels we've got now. So, it would be a vote winner, but, forget the votes. It's actually, it'll be good for the housing crisis. It'll be good for living standards, and we basically just need to moderate it back to what to sorts of levels we had, in the early 2000s, before we decided to go hog wild on this when it worked.
Leith Van Onselen, great to speak with you. Thanks for getting up early. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, Ned. Anytime. Thanks, mate.
There he is, Leith Van Onselen with the Treasury of Common Sense.